I am a researcher and a geek. Like most of us researcher and geeks would do before preparing for a talk like this, I Googled the most successful social entrepreneurs in the world today, and this is what I found. There are a few commonalities from what you see on the screen. One, mostly they're men. Two, they're white, they're West worldly. And three is they all have sufficient amount of gray hair. Now, I have gray hair too, but that's not the point. You're getting what I'm saying. They're all fairly senior, which is what makes it a very big surprise when I tell people that I run a non-profit, an NGO, full-time at the age of 29. What ends up happening is that people end up wondering why I do this as a full-time career. This becomes a big shock for people. So let me clarify a few things before I go forward. I did not have a high-powered corporate job. I do not come from money, influence, or inheritance. I have actually chosen to do this as a career choice. Today, I want to share with you all why I have chosen this. Again, as a typical researcher, geek, all of that, my journey started with a little bit of reading and understanding. India today is a country of 1.5 billion people, give or take a few million. What this means in economic terms is that we are a consumer market. What this means in business terms is we're called a labor surplus country. But the one that I like the most is that we're considered to be the youngest country in the world. UN numbers say that 65% of our population is actually below the age of 35. How many of you make that 65% today? In age, not at heart. Okay, great. So there you have it. Our strength as a country is in our numbers. We are the largest democracy in the world, the fifth largest global market or global economy. We are also leading in sectors like IT services, milk and dairy, and pharma production. If that's the case, why is it so that we are lacking behind in a few things? India stands 110th out of 169 countries in the Social Progress Index. We are also, unfortunately, 89th out of 128 countries when it comes to global giving back or giving back to society. I wonder why that might be. Is it because we don't really know which way we're going? We have a very strong, powerful direction, I feel, but somehow we lack a united purpose towards solving our social problems. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. A framework that helps give this solution, that helps unite people to actually solve once and for all the kind of problems that we face every day and that we see people facing every day. For this framework, it requires a very strong foundation, and that's what my topic for today is, and that's what I'd like to talk to you about today is doing well by doing good, ensuring that profit meets purpose at some point. Before I go ahead, and now that I've given you the background, I want to share a small story with you. Once upon a time, in a land far away, there was a small tiny village that wanted to set up a school for its village children. They all got together and broke down this project into smaller bits and pieces. They reached out to a nearby company, a manufacturing unit, that actually agreed to sponsor the brick and mortar building of the classrooms. The local village masonry, electricians, carpenters decided to contribute their skills and their times towards the project. The volunteers all came together and started working on making this a reality. Here, they decided that their vision was not just to make it an academic center, but also to use it to transform the village. They invited non-profits to come and do skilling exercises and awareness exercises to actually transform the way the village thinks. In a matter of a sheer 8 months, this school became the center for village development. What that did and what that showed us later was also a change in governance. The Gram Panchayat came together, sat with the villagers and talked about how can we change certain ethics and certain codes of conduct to keep nurturing this innovation. This village is not so far away. It's a village called Karandi in rural Pune itself and was one of the first projects of our foundation, Pratima Foundation. Now, the reason why I talked about Karandi is because that is the basis of the kind of model I'm talking about. We call this model the collective action model. In the collective action model, we bring together people, profit, and partnerships towards social good. What this model says is that profit can meet purpose, doing well by doing good. People here stand for action-oriented, result-oriented individuals, whether they are volunteers or employees of the organization. Profit here represents businesses that have sustainability at its core and have a social alignment at its core. And partnerships here represent social causes that are actually going to drive this last mile impact. So as we understand the collective action model, let's understand each section by section. The first one, which is people. 67% of people say that they are more likely to work for an organization that offers a volunteering program to give back to society. In fact, these companies also enjoy a 20% increase in tenure from these employees because they're so socially engaged with the purpose of the organization. We have a great example of this. An organization reached out to us about a couple of years back, and they were a US organization that had an India office. And they asked us to develop their employee volunteering program or employee giving program. What we did was we mapped employees to social causes that they aligned with, that they were passionate about. For some of them, it was about animal welfare, while for some of them, it was about digital literacy with self-help groups. The results of this were very clear within a year. These employees had 5 times better recorded well-being and were actually north of 50% more engaged with the organization. Their team leaders also saw a marked increase in their leadership ability and their teamwork skill. Doing good and doing well by doing good, giving back. Great example. Which brings us to the second part of our model, which is profit. This talks about what a company receives from adopting the social practices. Another stat here for you. A consumer is 4 times more likely to purchase a brand and 5 times more likely to recommend the brand to their friends if it is aligned to a social cause. What this means is that companies have to start questioning the very core of their business strategies and what drives their profit. A great example here is a global one. I'll take a global example here of Unilever. Hindustan Unilever, as we all know, is one of the larger consumer good brands in India. They were feeling a little bit of a lack of interest from their Gen Z and millennial consumers as they kept growing. And so in 2010, they adopted something called the sustainability plan. What they started doing was they started sourcing their raw materials sustainably. They started reducing their waste that was generating from packaging, and they increased the recyclability of their products. The change, even though it was slow, was very evident after a while. They have now seen almost a 10 to 15% rise in their Gen Z consumers. Now, when it comes to profit, it's also a big win-win for the company. They also saw a big increase in their bottom line because they were now cost saving and reducing any inefficiencies. So they were doing well by doing good. Which brings us to the last aspect of the model, which is partnerships. Without partnerships, without a ear to the ground, this entire model fails somewhere. It's very easy to champion a cause or to be an activist or a vocalist for a social cause, but you have to actually know the realities of that cause. And this is where NGOs play a very, very big role. They actually understand what the grassroots problem is and help convey that to the people and the companies so that they can make it a part of their own culture. A great example of this is a Pune-based organization called Adventures Beyond Barriers Foundation. What they do is they advocate for inclusion of people with disabilities into the world and into the mainstream. They organized a landmark event in 2020 where they had 125 CXO-level strategic leaders running alongside with people with disabilities in the first of its kind inclusive marathon. It was a part of the Tata Mumbai Marathon in 2020, and the result of this was phenomenal. By the time they got done with the project, they had generated 300 jobs for people with disabilities in the mainstream corporate sector. They did well by doing good. And so, as I come towards the tapering end of my conversation with you, I want to leave you with this thought and also the reason why I do what I do at 29. More than ever before, India today is in need of doers and leaders. People who can take impact right to the last mile in not just their words, but also their actions. For the vision of the few to drown out the voices of the many, of everybody else who says this is not possible. Each of us has a role to play to make that vision a reality. And so I ask you, if India matters to you, how would you like to matter to India? Thank you so much.